23rd of October is the anniversary of the 1983 bombing of the US Marine Corps barracks in Beirut in Lebanon. It was the first case of Islamic suicide bombing, something that until then was considered forbidden in Islam. But Khomeini's representative in Lebanon, a senior Shia cleric by the name of Isa Tabatabai, managed to get a fatwa from Khomeini that allowed it. The bombing of the barracks in Beirut was an event that shook the world and forever changed how the US viewed its role in the Middle East. So let's unpack the history, the impact and the lasting consequences of that fateful day. First, let's set the stage. It's the early 1980s and Lebanon is in the midst of a brutal civil war. The country is divided by religious, ethnic and political factions fighting each other, with outside powers like Syria and Iran getting involved too. Amid this chaos, the US, along with French and other international forces, deployed peacekeepers as part of a multinational force tasked with stabilizing Beirut and supporting the Lebanese government. But what happened next was anything but peaceful. On the morning of October 23rd, 1983, just after dawn, a truck loaded with explosives crashed through the gates of the US Marine Corps barracks at the Beirut International Airport. The driver, a suicide bomber, detonated the massive load, which was equivalent to 12,000 pounds of TNT. The blast was devastating, reducing the four-story building to rubble in seconds. 241 American servicemen were killed, 220 Marines, 18 sailors and 3 soldiers. It was the deadliest attack on US forces overseas since World War II. Moments later, a second bombing hit the French paratroopers barracks, killing 58 more soldiers. This was no random act of violence. The attackers were part of a new, larger militant group that called itself Hezbollah, meaning the Party of Allah. Their goal was clear: act as a proxy group for Iran and force the US and its allies out of Lebanon. The US public was shocked. President Ronald Reagan called the attack a despicable act of barbarism. The question became, how could this happen? How could the world's most powerful military be so vulnerable? In the aftermath, an investigation known as the Long Commission looked into the security lapses and found that despite warnings of an imminent attack, the Marines were not adequately prepared. Strict rules of engagement, which limited their ability to defend themselves, and intelligence failures played a huge role in the vulnerability of the troops. So what did the US do? How did the US retaliate? Well, the tragedy put immense pressure on Reagan's administration. There were calls for retaliation and military escalation, but there was no retaliation. And ultimately, just months after the bombing, the US withdrew its troops from Lebanon. The peacekeeping mission, meant to stabilize the region, had become too costly in American lives. Many saw the withdrawal as a victory for Hezbollah and Iran, and it sent a powerful message: terrorism could push even a superpower to retreat. Today, the legacy of the 1983 Beirut bombing is still felt. It marked a turning point in the use of suicide bombing as a weapon of terror. It amazes me when I see some young British students mourn Hassan Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader who was killed recently. But when you talk to these students, they have no idea about this event and that Hezbollah was the ones that started the cult of suicide bombing. Now, let's finish with some karma. Remember the Shia cleric Isa Tabatabai I mentioned earlier, who obtained the fatwa from Khomeini for suicide bombings? Well, in 2013, he himself, along with his wife and daughter, were badly hurt in a blast at the Iranian embassy in Beirut by an Al-Qaeda suicide bomber. Someone who boasted of being the godfather of suicide bombing became a victim of suicide bombing himself. How's that for karma? And in 2023, in an interview that was published by the Iranian media, he admitted Iran had ordered the bombing of the barracks. Thanks for watching, and as always, let's stay informed.